What's up, Shred Sexies? Welcome back. Death to the fingers. Back into her for another week, boys. Big update on the finger. You're not gonna believe this. So, like about 4 or 5 years ago, I had like this pain in my chest. And no, I'm not gonna die. But it was like weird. I was like, okay, I don't know what I'm gonna do here, but I just kept doing what I do all the time, which is basically make no changes. And then the pain moved from here. Well, it was there, and then all of a sudden it started showing up on my shoulder, and I'm just like, okay, that's weird. Then a few years later, it's down here in the crook of my arm kind of situation. And then this year, it was my finger. And last week or whatever it was, I kind of was like breaking down. So I had a toke, and it just made it really bad, including my finger. So I diligently went to the old AI and I started asking some pretty basic questions. And they're like, basically, it sounds like you have nerve, like whatever, an inflamed nerve situation. So long story short is I might have burned through 6 months for no real reason. The real problem was I had to quit smoking altogether. Yeah. So we went cold turkey last week. And man, has that ever sucked. But it's a necessary evil, and obviously things are getting a lot better right now. So I don't know what to say. So there it is. I'll have to quit smoking for the next 6 months to a year or whatever it is, and maybe never go back to it. I don't know. But it's the end of an era. Thought it was worth basically mentioning at least. So in case you're in the same boat as I am there. There is a shelf life, I guess you could say. And I had a good run from about 16 until 50. So I'm not really complaining, but clearly I abused the privilege, and the party's over. Because let's be real, I do like smoking for sure, but I like playing music more. And there are other solutions to sort of altered states of mind if I'm really interested in that. So yeah, that's the big update. So we're just going to see how things go for the next month. But I've already seen significant improvement already. So yeah, good times. I was kind of talking to somebody on the Twitters yesterday, which sort of brought up the topic we're going to talk about today, which is, and really it started with the whole, do you think you're able to attain the American dream, if you will, with respect to sort of pursuing music? And I was like, dude, I'm like, it's not that you can't do it. I mean, anything is possible. The question is it worth trying? With depending on a whole bunch of factors, like how good you are, how creative you are, where you live, access to people that can make the moves, blah, blah, blah. There's a whole bunch of things in there that sort of, influence that analysis, if you will. But the truth is like, I think it's time to just admit that the American dream, or whatever that entails, basically upward mobility for the average person, is basically dead. I mean, if you've seen what's been going on the last few days, Donald Trump's like 50-year mortgages, 15-year car loans. Like, come on, man, what's that? What are we saying here? You know what I mean? So the truth is that, and I've mentioned it before, basically the idea that you can use music as a vehicle for financial gain is just kind of ludicrous at this point. And the whole machine's kind of falling apart, there's two of the exact same lawsuits. Basically, one was filed by Drake and another one by some other rapper. Basically, because of the way Spotify works, they just take everybody else's money if you don't get enough plays or whatever, and just give it to people who are getting plays. And I'm like, I don't really understand that, but I'm glad I abandoned that platform years ago, because it's just awful. You imagine that? You work your ass off for a year basically to produce a cool piece of music, and although you're being sort of whatever shoved down into the basement, just like anybody is with respect to social media, because that's what that is. Spotify is a form of social media with respect to musicians. They collect all the gravy. They reward the big sort of earners and stuff like that. Even though, does Drake need more money? You'd think, okay, now that you have $1 billion in the bank, do we really need to give you more money? It's just kind of strange, but whatever. There's a huge lawsuit going on now with respect to how that money gets divvied up, or if it's generated by bots and a whole bunch of other things. So the big takeaway, of course, is if places like Spotify are starting to get attacked for their business practices with respect to, disseminating music, that's what we call the canary in the coal mine, right? Like, and obviously this is after the fact, where they were basically probably, I'm going to say tentatively, I don't really know because I haven't looked into it because I don't care about Spotify, but creating fake artists using AI and then artificially pumping them on the platform so they get all the money. There is no payout. The payout goes directly to Spotify or whoever else, which is weird because when some other dude did that a few years ago, he got nailed and they arrested him. So rules for thee and not for me. And that's just it. That's what I'm talking about the American dream. Donald Trump says, I'm going to crack down on Antifa. This morning I saw that they were like hanging out in front of some educational institution, basically mocking all the people that were whatever, doing their thing with this TPUSA group. And it was just lawless madness, right? And I'm just like, okay. He's like, we can't, kick 600,000 Asian students out of the Americas because if we did, the schools would collapse. I failed to see how that actually conforms with the basic principles of capitalism. Aren't you supposed to be able to make it on your own merits, bare minimum? But that's my point. You see, he's prepared to protect these leftist indoctrination centers that basically offer nothing. And this is probably a lot deeper than that. I'm kind of really, skirting the issue. I mean, let's face it, China has a monopoly on the rare earth mineral sort of market. And then there's the close proximity of Taiwan, right? So that's where all the semiconductors and chips are made. So doesn't take long to figure out what's going on here. China clearly was like, well, if you don't allow our students, then you don't get any rare earth minerals, and we'll just start making your life difficult with respect to getting these chips by whatever, sparking up a hot war with Taiwan or whatever. I don't know. Whatever the negotiation sort of tactic was, but I'm sure that they kind of strong-armed him a little bit because obviously the Americans, as powerful as they are and stuff like that, you still have made questionable decisions about, supply chain reliance, right? And that's what I'm talking about. Like, the American dream died in the mid-90s when I showed up to work one day for what was supposed to be the last job of my entire life, working at a cable factory as a shift electrician. You know what I mean? And I could have just grinded it out for 20 or 30 years or whatever it is. And, retired. But one day I showed up to work and they're like, yeah, we sold everything and we're moving it to Asia. And I was like, really? I remember how shocked I was when some of the guys were talking about actually taking these deals where they were sweetened a little bit because they were going to go over to Asia and teach these Asians how to do their job and how to run these machines. They were kind of temperamental and finicky, if you will, but that was the day I learned that globalism is not your friend and that really the North American dream, if you will, was basically quickly slipping away. And I was only in my 20s. Like, a lot of people now are starting to be like, well, Gen X, they have something to do with this whole collapsing of the social order, if you will. And there's definitely an argument to be made there. We were pretty apathetic. We didn't actually stand up or fight back against the government because this stuff kind of creeps up insidiously, but it's that's not an excuse, right? So we all got mashed in the smashing game or whatever it is. And here we are kind of thing. So now we're into, the dark times. Really, this is like the final stages, if you ask me, of civilizational collapse. And that's just a fact. Our culture means nothing. You know, it doesn't even mean anything to be American or Canadian anymore. What does that actually mean anymore when there's basically people here from every country of the world, you know, all pretending to be like Canadian or American, but at the same time, basically only sort of fraternizing, integrating, and helping their own. I saw a crazy one this morning about, I think it was Minnesota, where there's this huge Somalian crowd. And they're like, yeah, we don't fraternize with anybody else. We just do our own thing. Like, that's our strategy. I was just like, damn, this is on national TV, man. Like, these people have no fear whatsoever of just saying the quiet part out loud. And that's not the only time I've seen it. I've seen it many, many, many times. There was one from like a week or two ago where these, you know, these Muslims were marching in somewhere in the UK, and this idiot leftist yelled out, hey man, you know, we're all on the same side. And the Muslim dude just looks him dead in the face and says, no, we're not. Now listen, you make up your own mind with respect to that stuff, because honestly, I don't like influencing people, but bottom line, there's definitely something going on there. That's not good, right? That doesn't show somebody. When I was a kid and groups of these people came, they integrated into our society, and I was friends with a lot of them, actually. That was just the way it was. We didn't really sort of care that much. It was just like, are you a cool person? Done. But now that the population dynamic has shifted pretty significantly, the mask kind of gets torn off. You saw that with guys like Dinesh D'Souza. You know what I mean? Like, as soon as people started to attack the India thing, and really it kind of sparked off when that one guy, the YouTuber, was filming this poop throwing festival or whatever's going on there, which was weird to me. I'm like, the Indians got really offended by that. And, you know, they're like, we're going to dox you, and we're going to, you know, he was getting threats and all the rest of this stuff. It was just absolutely nutty. But they had no problem basically having the festival in the first place, and they didn't seem to have any issue with the fact the guy was there in a full kind of like hazmat suit with a camera filming it. Like, they thought it was pretty funny and cool. So can anyone make that make sense? But then they're like, we want to cancel this person. And then Dinesh D'Souza, who's apparently an American that's been there for 40 years, he's like, yeah, no, siding with these other people. Which just goes to show you, listen, man, ethnic groups basically prefer to support their own. I don't think there's much of an argument to be made there. And honestly, it's just human nature. I'm not faulting them for it. But as soon as other people start doing it, well, all of a sudden it's a problem. You know what I mean? And you see like the really bizarre stuff going on right now with guys like Ben Shapiro and whatnot being like, well, if you can't afford to live in New York, maybe you shouldn't be living here. And I'm just like, if the government or society in general has created the conditions where you can't even afford to live in a city anymore, I mean, doesn't that sort of expose the larger problem that we've made fundamental mistakes with respect to managing the economy and housing and immigration and jobs and a whole bunch of other things so badly that now all of a sudden the obvious and most essential elements to maintain a high quality society, like having access to housing that's relatively affordable. I'm not talking about buying a mansion, but just living in an apartment. I saw this horrifying sort of like little mini documentary, if you will, about people living in New York. And this one chick had like an apartment that's fractions, like a third of the size of mine. Mine is tiny. Theirs was like a third the size. And they're paying way more than I was in American dollars. And I was just like, damn, you know what I mean? Like a closet basically for almost $1,000 a month. American. I'm just like, bro, I don't care where it is. There's something wrong there. So, you know, the wider context is that the American dream in and of itself is a bit of a misnomer, because there is no dream left. We kind of collectively, probably the lion's share of the blame goes to the boomers who are incredibly selfish and self-centered and just were like, yeah, whatever. It's good for us, so we don't care. Kind of get it. Into the apathy of Gen X, into the dysfunctionality of the millennials, right? That's the whole wacky crowd and whatnot, and even a little bit of the Zoomer crowd. But now the older Zoomers are definitely, they're coming out swinging with this whole Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes situation just exploding or whatever. And listen, it's all bread and circuses, boys. At the end of the day, none of these people like Fuentes or Tucker or anybody else, they may talk about what issues ail you and sort of articulate it in a way that you can get behind and sort of be like, yeah, that's totally me and stuff like that. But they're not going to help you. Nobody's going to help you. Donald Trump's proving that. Donald Trump literally ran on this whole let's make America great again, and then effectively reneged on every single one of his promises. It hasn't been the largest mass deportation in American history. It's basically comparable to Obama, and really that's less than Biden. Now, Biden's major sin is not really deporting the people, was just letting millions and millions and millions of undocumented people in. Sure, he was doing the deportations too, but way more flooded across the border, right? So let's not be kidding ourselves about the reality here. But Donald Trump is not really doing anything either. You know, and listen, it's not really my place to say Canada is in a way worse place than the United States, but it doesn't really matter now, does it? We're all headed on the same trajectory. Whether you live in the States or you live in Canada, it doesn't really matter once the dominoes start to fall, and clearly they are. Like, Germany's like, we have to deport something like 1.5 million Syrians or whatever. Well, how the hell are you going to do that now? Honestly, that's a small army, bro. That's way more than a small army. But I mean, if you took like the people out of that who are motivated and whatever else, intractable, ornery, call it what you will. But that's probably like 50 to 100,000 people of the 1.5 million. They're not just going to leave. It's just a fact. If you've ever seen pictures of Gaza, that's what Syria looks like for the most part. Not to mention the new whatever head guy for Syria, who's pretty sketchy. He's touring the White House today. So, I mean, make of that what you will, but, it's been leveled. It's been absolutely leveled. Of course, these people are going to be like, stay in Germany where I get basically everything I want paid for free, and I can do whatever I want. Like, let's face it, when it comes to laws and things like that and the application of those laws against these people, just for basic stuff, it's like thrown out the window. You see that in the UK, you see it in Sweden. Like, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy what's going on. I feel bad. Sweden will collapse. Like, they're probably, we talk a lot about the UK and they're in trouble, but at least they have some people there that have the fighting spirit. I've not seen anything in Sweden, man. They are just basically walking towards the precipice and they're just like, it'll be okay. They're going to get absolutely wrecked. One third of the country is not Swedish. Holy shit. What? Oh my God. How? When I was a kid, that was the land of blonde people, cross country skiing, like reindeers and, weird winter sports or whatever. Like and death metal and black metal. ABBA. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're from Sweden. You know what I mean? Nuts. It's just absolutely nuts. I mean, the bottom line is ask yourself, I don't care what side of the aisle you're on with respect to this issue. The thing is like at any point in time, if we actually lived in the free democratic society like they claim on a regular basis, there would have been some sort of, request for input from the actual people that live here. If Donald Trump's like, do you want 600,000 Chinese students coming to school here, knowing that if they didn't come, it may collapse a bunch of worthless educational institutions? Most people would be like, no, absolutely not. Let them go home and let the institutions collapse. Somebody else will pick up the slack and specialize in sort of educational materials that are going to be beneficial to the country. Isn't like creative destruction is an actual thing when you're talking about business, meaning the old sort of business paradigms collapse and new ones take their place because this worked 25 years ago. It doesn't work right now because times change. You know what I mean? So, I mean, that's just it. When you start to add up all of the losses versus the wins with respect to the American dream, the North American dream, it's just there is no more dream. It's like everything else. The music industry's rotten to the core. It's irrelevant. Hollywood's rotten to the core. It's totally irrelevant. And I think Hollywood's biggest star right now is probably Sydney Sweeney, and every movie she's been in is tanked. So what does that tell you? It's more about the orbs than it is the action, the acting abilities. So, because it's hilarious. She'll show up in like this crazy dress for an award show or whatever it is, and it'll break the internet for like 3 days. But not a single person gives a shit about going to see her movie or her acting chops. So that one's gotta hurt. So you know what I mean? Like, there comes a time when you just have to be real about stuff. That doesn't mean quit. I'm not saying quit at all. You won't be able, if you're a real musician, you won't be able to. That's facts. But the broader implications here is that don't set yourself up for a brutal rebuke with respect to an ego check when you invest a lot of time and effort and stuff like that, and you expect to see some sort of return on investment, and you just get absolutely demoed in the process. You know what I mean? And that's exactly what's going to happen. Things are going to have to get so bad, in my opinion, that the redress happens naturally. It can't happen through some sort of artificial political nonsense or, bickering on the internet or screaming you hate about another country, whatever country that is, or these silly protests and stuff, or refugees or whatever it is. It's not. These are all contrived processes used to keep us at each other's throats rather than recognizing what the real problem is our political representation has utterly failed us, and our society is basically suffering as a result of it. So the best thing to do is just kind of pull back, collect your thoughts, hope for the best, just head down, keep working on stuff to whatever extent that you can, and then just try to derive personal joy from what it is that you're doing. Every time I make mixes and I put them out, and I'd finished a master and sent it to Pierre, my buddy who writes music with me, and had him listen to it, and he was like, it's really awesome. We got to make a few tweaks here, here, here. And I was like, okay, I knew that was coming. Final mix number 17. But the truth is that just him saying that to me personally, he was like, comparably to the old ones, he's like, this stuff is way better, like night and day better. That was all I needed to validate 2 years worth of work. Just him saying 2 sentences in a text message. And I was just like, that's worth it. It's worth it. The guy I've been writing music with for 20 plus years said, this is pretty damn good. Like really damn good. With a few minor tweaks, it'll be up there with anything I've heard in a recording, barring a few bands that can afford like the multi-bazillion dollar studio experience and like insanely qualified people to mix the music and master it in the whole 9 yards with billions of dollars worth of gear. You know what I mean? I'll take the win. And that's what I'm talking about. You have to orient yourself to be like, it's enough for me to sort of like meet my own goals and be satisfied with that than it is to sort of seek external validation from somebody else, the internet, Spotify with clicks and plays, money on Bandcamp or whatever sort of service you use there, CD Baby or whatever, DistroKid. You know what I mean? Like that stuff is just setting you up for a really, really savage and negative experience. And so to mitigate any sort of real loss of forward momentum by just, becoming discouraged with the outcome is just instead reframe your expectations and how you derive some sort of sense of accomplishment by being, it's more important that I learn this scale. It's more important that I can play this song now, or I have developed this skill that I'm good enough. I can play all the way through Disposable Heroes or something like that from Metallica without, totally gassing out or whatever else it is. You know what I mean? If you do things like that, each one of those little victories adds up over the long haul. And then overall, you're just like, I'm really satisfied with where I am and what I've accomplished. And that's all that matters. If there was a point, and I'll leave it at this, where I thought I might not be able to play guitar ever again. And it might be possible. It's, like you never say never. You don't know what the future holds. But the point is that in the darkest times, I kind of sat back and was like, regardless, I far surpassed any goal that I ever had when I first started doing this. I'm playing at a level that I never thought I'd be able to accomplish. And that was enough. I was like, if I never get to play again, at the end of the day, I actually did what I wanted to do. And that's enough. See you in the next one.